ഞാനിത്
ഞാൻ സ്റ്റോപ്പ് ഷെയറിംഗ് കൊടുക്കണം മിസ്സേ.
വേണ്ട വേണ്ട, ഞാനൊന്ന് ചെക്ക് ചെയ്തിട്ടാ. ഞാൻ അതുല്യ അയച്ചേ. അതുല്യ അവിടെ ഉണ്ടോ? അതുല്യ ഷെയർ ചെയ്യാവോ?
ഓക്കെ മാം, ഞാൻ ട്രൈ ചെയ്യാമേ.
ഓക്കെ. അനു, എനിക്ക് പഴയത് മാറ്റി പുതിയത് അയച്ചു തന്നിട്ടുണ്ടാ?
മിസ്സിന് അല്ല, പുതിയത് മിസ്സിന്
അയച്ചിട്ടുണ്ടാ?
ഇല്ല ഇല്ല ഇല്ല
ഇല്ല.
വാട്സാപ്പ് ചെയ്താൽ മതി മിസ്സേ.
വാട്സാപ്പ് ചെയ്താൽ മതി. അതുല്യ ഷെയർ ചെയ്യുമ്പോ ബുദ്ധിമുട്ടുണ്ടാവോ?
മാം നോക്കട്ടെ, അഡ്മിറ്റ് ചെയ്യണം നമുക്ക് ജോയിൻ ചെയ്യുന്നവരെ. അത് ഞാൻ ഒന്ന് ശ്രമിച്ചു നോക്കാമേ.
ഓക്കെ. ഞാനൊന്ന് നോക്കട്ടെ അതിൽ എന്താണ് എന്റെ അതിലെന്തോ ഒരു പ്രശ്നമാണ്. 2-3 സംഭവം
ഹോസ്റ്റ് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റുമെങ്കിൽ ഞാൻ അഡ്മിറ്റ് ചെയ്യാം.
ഓക്കെ, ഞാൻ മീരെ കോ ഹോസ്റ്റ് ആക്കാം. വെയിറ്റ്.
ഓക്കെ.
അനിയൊന്ന് പ്രസന്റിങ് മാറ്റി.
സ്റ്റോപ്പ് പ്രസന്റിങ്.
സ്റ്റോപ്പ് പ്രസന്റിങ് ആക്കി.
സ്റ്റോപ്പ് ഷെയറിംഗ്.
നമുക്ക് പറ്റില്ലെങ്കിൽ ഓക്കെ, നമുക്ക് സ്റ്റാർട്ട് ചെയ്താലും വരാം. സാധാരണ പോലെ തന്നെ അനു ചെയ്തോളൂ നടന്നില്ലെങ്കിൽ ട്ടാ.
Okay, miss. ഞാൻ present ചെയ്യാം.
Ma'am, it's almost it's 7 itself. So shall we start?
7. We can start, I think.
Sure. So good evening, everyone. Today we all have gathered here in this virtual platform to witness yet another enlightening, informative, and a wonderful session of Chrysalis 3 2023-24. I'm CM Meera, research scholar with the Research and Postgraduate Department of English, St. Aloysius College, Thrissur. On behalf of the entire department as well as St. Aloysius College, Thrissur, I welcome everyone present here for today's session. A warm welcome to our beloved principal, Dr. Chako Joseph. I welcome you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I welcome Dr. Betsy Paul C., our research coordinator. Welcome you, ma'am. And I welcome today's presenter, Dr. Anu Antony, as well as the chair for today's session, Dr. Varsha K. Betsy, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, echoing.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. So, on behalf of the entire department as well as college, I take this opportunity to welcome all the research scholars, research guides, as well as the other students and teachers who have joined in this virtual platform to make this session very beautiful, enlightening, and informative. So, Chrysalis 3, a commemorative lecture series, is conducted in fond remembrance of our beloved teachers, Reverend Father Antony Kuttikat, Dr. Dhanya Menon, and Professor M.T. Paul Davis. And it is organized by the Research and PG Department of English in collaboration with the IQAC. The presentation for today's session will be done by Dr. Anu Antony, Assistant Professor on Contract, Department of English, Carmel College, Autonomous, Mala. And today's discussion is entitled State as a Construct of Power in Social Discourse, a reading of select films of Adoor Gopalakrishnan. The session will be chaired by Dr. Varsha K., Assistant Professor, Department of English, VIT Vellore. Her doctoral degree was from University of Hyderabad, and her research areas include comparative literature and women's studies. So without much ado, let's start today's session. And with much pleasure, I hand over the session to the chair for today's session, Dr. Varsha K. Over to you, ma'am. Ma'am, can you please unmute yourself?
Yeah. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. And I'm very glad to be part of the third edition of Chrysalis organized by St. Aloysius College, Elthurut. I thank the organizers for this opportunity, especially Dr. Betsy Paul for her warm and friendly invitation. Today's presenter, Dr. Anu Antony, is a friend and a fellow researcher. As you know, she teaches at Department of English, Carmel College, Mala. The topic of presentation today is State as a Construct of Power in Social Discourse, a reading of select films of Adoor Gopalakrishnan. On the backdrop of Adoor's selected films like Elipatayam, Kadhapurushan, Mukhamukam, etc., Dr. Anu will speak about how the discourse of power functions through the state and the people's resistance to it. Without further delay, let's invite Dr. Anu to share her ideas with us.
Hello, good evening, everyone. First of all, I have to tell a big thanks to my alma mater, Department of English, St. Aloysius College. Actually, I really feel honored and happy to become a part of the session, and also in the college where I have completed my PG. So first of all, I would like to thank Betsy ma'am and all the organizers for inviting me to give a talk on the session. Also, I am very happy and I feel elated to become a part of the session, which commemorates Reverend Father Antony Kuttikat, who was also a teacher of mine. So, without further delay, I think, shall I go to the presentation? So, ma'am, may I know whether the slides are seen?
Yes, we can see the slides.
Okay. So the topic of the presentation is the state as a construct of power in social discourse, a reading of select films of Adoor Gopalakrishnan. So, coming to the introduction, you can see the films of Adoor Gopalakrishnan. Actually, the transition of Kerala from a feudal state into the phase of modernity, actually, it serves as a background for the discussion of the films. So, the reading of the films actually will concentrate on the dynamics of culture, its historical foundations, practices, and manifestations. So the field of cultural studies, actually, it encompasses a range of theoretical perspectives to unearth the history of a narrative. To be more clear, to state or to foreground the history of Kerala as a state, how the policies construct power. So Adoor Gopalakrishnan as a filmmaker actually tries to transcreate his own experience with a particular age. Age means to be specific, from 1940 to 1980 in his films. So his films not only gives not enjoyment, but it makes the viewers think and relate to a universal experience. So power is seen everywhere in our society. It is mandatory in all forms of relationships. And film is a part of art. So art copies society in different manifestations. When power is inherent in society, it can be reflected in art forms such as literature, film, dance forms, etc. So here, the study aims to focus on films. The concentration, my study will be limited to the layers of power structures in the films. That is how state as a construct forms power. So Michel Foucault, as a French historian, has investigated the delineation of not only through political ideologies, but also through the inculcation of indirect, invisible, and abstract ideology. The application of Foucault's perception of power in the film as a text identifies the operation of power not only in the form of dictatorship, it rather concentrates how the self and society, or how the individual and society mutually intersect in the problematization of power. So, of course, Michel Foucault's theories are associated with post-structuralist and postmodernist perspectives. Also, the study also investigates how human beings are made subjects and objects, actually, by the state. The society is made up of a complex set of power mechanisms, including visible and invisible manifestations of power. So my study, or this particular paper, tries to look how Adoor Gopalakrishnan as a filmmaker reflects the same in the plot and the narrative aesthetics of the film. Being film, we have to speak about the non-literary signifiers used in the film. So the function of power is visible in both human beings and animals. It's difficult to live in a society which has no hierarchy. So here, power can be defined in terms of oppressor-oppressed relationship, and also in the productive aspect in the term of well-being of a society. And coming to the second slide, Adoor Gopalakrishnan as a filmmaker. You may know he's a legendary filmmaker, and he has directed 12 films and over 40 documentaries. His film, the transition of Kerala from a feudal state into modernity, that serves as the backdrop for the discussion in the most of his films, with a few exceptions. And when we discuss the Kerala has a trope, Adoor's perspectives might have entered into the narrative of the film. Actually, he discovers many power structures embedded in the socio-cultural history of Kerala, but he has not narrated it in the same way, or he has not narrated that directly, but through the portrayal of individual lives. And even when Adoor Gopalakrishnan has portrayed the life, or if he has portrayed an individual, he focuses on inner reality of a human being. So again, it becomes a question how we can portray the inner reality of a human being through the medium of a film. So he focuses, or he gives different metaphors. The metaphors used in the films of Adoor Gopalakrishnan are very significant. Each and every prop and metaphor used in a particular scene has a significant meaning. So more than the dialogue, actually silence, if you have seen the films of Adoor Gopalakrishnan, silence functions as a main trope in the films. But the props, the mise-en-scene, all such things used in the films of Adoor, they talked a lot. Actually, they speak about the inner realities of men through the aesthetic portrayal. Then the portrayal of human conditions, they are universal. And as we have already taught, he delves into the complexities and conflicts hidden in each and every individual. So when the life of a particular human being, or when we portray a particular community, state actually functions as a backdrop. Adoor Gopalakrishnan actually tries to tell the story of a community which lives in a particular age. To be more specific, in some of his films, actually the first two films that I have taken, Elipatayam and Kada Purishan. So in these films, he spoke about a particular community, to be specific, Nayar community, in a particular age between 1940 and 1980. So his own perspectives have influenced him in the narrative of the film. And coming to the methodology for the discussion of the films, that is power structure or power relations in the society that form as the backdrop for the discussion. But what makes power, or what constructs power? For the discussion in these films, I have chosen state. How state is formed as a construct in the relations of power. Not only the repressive form. When we speak about power, we usually mean the repressive aspect of power. But here, I made an attempt to discuss both productive and repressive aspects of power. So as I already mentioned, the state functions as a significant factor in the discussion of the film. Foucault's understanding of sovereign power and its perception in the society, how it is conceptualized, how that sovereign power is conceptualized as a form of power. So if we see, or if we discuss the classical theory of sovereignty, actually it mainly focuses on legitimacy. So it has certain limitations. It actually speaks about power, or it discusses power in a form of, it is a kind of monolithic power. It has certain limitations. It fails to explain how power actually functions in the society. Here, Michel Foucault, he makes an attempt to discuss how power extends beyond the state, or how it functions through the state, through the institutions like family, marriage, gender, class, caste, etc. So the implications of sovereign power in the select films of Adoor, I made an attempt to discuss it through allusions and references to the policies and political implications in the state of Kerala. To quote Michel Foucault, the state is superstructural in relation to a whole series of power networks that invest the body, sexuality, family, kinship, knowledge, technology, and so forth, unquote. So according to Foucault, the classical privilege of the state power or sovereign power is the right to take life or let live. But in contrast to the repressive mode of sovereign power, expressed as the right to end life, new forms of power began to emerge. And here, because of this new form of power, the entrapment of individuals, you can see a certain group of individuals are entrapped, and how they perceive the changes. It is not a form of repressive power, but there is power, and how that power functions in the entrapment of individual, and through individual, how it makes further development to community and again to the big society. So here the study attempts to find out the effects of state on people, and how people or how individual or how a community react to this particular imposed dominance. Of course, we can't neglect, or we can't neglect the repressive nature of power, but there is the productive nature of power. And at the same time, you can see wherever there is power, we can see there is resistance. So here we can see both the repressive and productive nature of power, and at the same time, the resistance towards the power entanglements. And coming to the next slide, film as a social document. Film, that is the films of Adoor Gopalakrishnan that we have already mentioned. Kerala, to be more specific, Travancore, the princely state of Travancore, with a few exceptions. That is the main plot of most of the films of Adoor Gopalakrishnan. And you can see, if we go through the history books, we can see the period between 1940 and 1980. Actually, that was a turbulent period regarding the history of Kerala. We have studied in the history books, that is formation of Kerala, formation of modern Kerala in 1956. Then, like that, the first the Communist Party, which went the Kerala election in 1957. Then the matrilineal system, how the matrilineal system was abolished, and the shift from Marimakatayam to Makatayam, and how all these revisions in the policies have affected the individuals of a particular generation and the individuals of a particular community. There are people who were entrapped through the revisions of the policy. When state inculcates, or when state introduces a new policy, of course, we can say there are people who resist such policies, and there are people who welcome that. But there are many policy revisions, there are many policies during that particular period, which was often considered as a turbulent period. So how people react, and how certain people were entrapped because of that, and how they react to that. That is one of the main discussion that we are going to see in the first two films, that is Elipatayam and Kadapurushan. And coming to the next slide, new historicist reading. That is when we speak about a state, or when we speak about power structure, new historicism is important. New historicism, we can know this about the textuality of the history and the historicity of the text. So when Adoor Gopalakrishnan, or if you see the films of Adoor, you can analyze it functions as a core text together with the reading of the history of Kerala. It never gives you a background like traditional historicism. It never gives you a background about the history of Kerala, but you can understand the cultural history of Kerala through the reading of the films of Adoor. It actually serves as a core text. So when Adoor Gopalakrishnan narrates that particular age in his films, he actually speaks about both meta-narratives and mini-narratives. He speaks about different conflicts and oppositions in that age. He speaks about the power structures of the age. So actually, I think his films actually serves as a new historicist, or as a new historicist, or how a new historicist reads his films. Actually, it is a good example to have a new historicist reading, to analyze the films of Adoor Gopalakrishnan. And in the first two films, Elipatayam, both in Elipatayam, Kadapurushan and Mukhamugam, these films serve as best examples for a new historicist reading. And the first film that I am going to discuss, that is Elipatayam. I think most of you might have heard about, and at least some of you have seen that particular film. The protagonist in that particular film is a character named Unnikunnu. He's a character who represents the community of a past feudal order. He's a character who declines to become a part of the new system. This particular character challenges the hierarchical structures of power that exist within the domains of caste and class. Actually, Adoor Gopalakrishnan frequently employs the dialogues of the character, this Unnikunnu, as a satirical weapon to highlight the power structures in the society. He declines to become a part of the new social order. This Unnikunnu's family, actually, they maintained a financial stability and caste superiority in the past. The clues that Adoor has used as props in the film, actually, they enhance the aesthetic charm, and even the noises that Adoor has employed in the film, it actually add to the meaning. The study intends to bring out the power relations within the changing family structure. The film displays the dilapidated conditions of those cultural props, which were once indicators of the class and their financial or economic dominance. The decay or the dilapidated condition of the contextual props used in that film, that indicates financial instability. The reading of the cause of this, how their family becomes in such a condition. The historical background gives us a clue, and it gives an idea about, that is why I have mentioned about the significance of the new historicist reading. It gives an idea about the decline of the matrilineal systems among Nair families, and also the land reform bill in 1969. The character Unni is considered as a beholder of wealth, status, and privilege during a certain time. And being the Karanavar of the family, he was granted authority over the land and property. So the structure of the film can be considered as an offshoot of the reaction to the abolition of the joint family system in 1976. And the Unnikunnu is a character who is not ready, who's not even ready to part or to have the partition with his three sisters. Here, when we speak about the character Unnikunnu, his three sisters are also very important, and how they react together with this particular character Unnikunnu, how his three sisters react to how they adapt to the changed structure or the changed political structure and also the cultural system. Then in this particular film also speaks about the Gulf migration. And if you have seen that film, there is a person named Matai Kuti. he's the son of there is a person called Varit. There is a Karnavar, not Karnavar, sorry, the one who looks after all those things, or one who manages all their affairs. His son named Matai Kuti, he comes from Gulf, and the person named Unnikunyu, he never welcomes that because his father was their servant. So he never welcomes the new change in the caste and the class. He makes an attempt to insult the particular character, Matai Kuti, even though he is in a good position during that time. And coming to the next slide. Yeah, this is just a shot from the, some images from the film Elipatayam. The very title of the film Elipatayam, in English, it is Rat Trap. They are Nalugittu, the Nalugittu in which Unni and his 3 sisters live. Actually, it is also a trap. We can compare it with that rat trap. For a rat, until the feed is over, it never understands it's a trap. But when the feed is over, the rat understands it is a trap. Like that, the people who live in that Nalugittu, especially Unnikunyu and her sister Rajamma. Rajamma understands, but she never makes an attempt to escape from that. And the character Unnikunyu, he knows, but he is not, or he never welcomes, or he never makes an attempt to welcome that change or to escape from his preconceived notion. There are 3 sisters. There is an younger sister named Sridevi. Actually, she is a representative of the new order. She welcomes the new change. And coming to the next slide, when we speak about the non-literary signifiers in the films of Adoor Gopalakrishnan, I think this particular scene, this is quite significant because I have mentioned about a character named Rajamma, who is the sister of Unnikunyu. She never makes, or she's not willing. It is because of her surroundings, or it is because of her context that she lives in. The escape is not a practical possibility for the sister named Rajamma. So there is a scene in which they saw an aeroplane, and the 2 sisters were enthusiastically coming out to see the aeroplane, and how both sisters view, or how you can say whether they are able to see the aeroplane. Let me play this.
ചേച്ചി എന്താ? കണ്ണിനകത്തൊരു മാതിരി ഇരുട്ട് കയറിയ പോലെ. ഇപ്പൊ തിരക്കേടില്ല, കുറേശ്ശെ കാണാം.
So actually, this particular scene serves as a context. We can read like that. This particular scene serves as a contextual metaphor, how they adapt or how they perceive the new changes. The escape from this particular trap or the so-called Nalugittu, that becomes immensely impossible for the 2 characters, Unnikunyu and his sister, this particular person, Rajamma. Her name is Rajamma. That is why I have seen this, played this particular film clip. And coming to the next film discussion, that is Kadapurushan. In Kadapurushan also we can see the Kerala. It actually functions as a backdrop, like what I have already mentioned, the period of Kerala between 1940 and 1980. The film narrates the political history and the cultural history of the Kerala, together with the life of the protagonist, the gradual development in the life of the character named Kunyunni. He is the protagonist of this particular film. So together with the gradual development of Kunyunni from a small boy to an adult, we can see parallelly the revision of policies, the development of Kerala, how the policies, how the rules, all such things are implemented in Kerala. So Adoor, in a way, he attempts to, or he narrates the turmoils in Kerala's political life with Kunyunni's life. Through this particular character, Kunyunni, he represents a generation that is trapped in hidden power structures. The unseen power actually acts as a decisive factor even in the lives of the people. And the plot of the film actually incorporates the Foucauldian notion of power, then the ideology of Marxism. All such things we can see in the film through the characterization of Kunyunni. He's a character, even he belongs to a Nair family, Nair feudal family. His perspectives are left biased. He dislikes the label. There is a scene in which the other characters address him as a bourgeois. He dislikes that, and his involvement in Naxalism. He's grown up as a boy in a particular Nair matrilineal family raised by maternal grandmother. But he's a person who welcomes the changes, or who welcomes the power if it is good for a society. So he's ready to change, or he's ready to adapt to that changed system. Even his involvement, there is a scene in which we can see his involvement in Naxalism. It is represented through how the police subdue the movement. In certain instances, we can see the repressive nature of power in a stage where how the police subdue the movement. The particular character Kunyunni, he becomes actively involved in Naxalite ideology. It represents the voice of an age in which the youth, like what we have seen in New Historicism. So it represents the voice of an age in which the youth were influenced by the Naxalite ideology. The Naxalite uprising of 1960, it arose as a reaction to feudalism and bourgeois, as well as the degeneration of Kerala's Communist Party, and how the radical educated youth of that particular period fought for their rights. So Adoor brought this experience only in this particular film, Kadapurushan, and he narrated how state sometimes welcomed and sometimes intervened, and at certain times repressed the trajectories of the movements, which were very significant during that particular period. Then again we can see Kunyunni, this particular protagonist. He's a character who develops his reflections and perspectives in response to the needs of the society. The repressive apparatus of the state tries to resist the movement, but being a member of the feudal family itself, he fought for the rights of the downtrodden. The film also captures the repression of the police to subdue the activism in the case of his uncle and himself. And we can see there is the changing scenario, that is how the class and caste, how the hierarchies that we construct between the caste and class, how such things are ruptured. There is a servant's family who lives close to the family of Kunyuni. So you can see the fluid nature of the power structures embedded in the caste and class. But we cannot fully erase, we cannot fully neglect the power disparity. We can see, we can interpret it as a sort of erasure. It exists somewhere. That is about the film Kunyuni. Sorry, no, film Kadapurushan. Kunyuni is the protagonist. And coming to the next film in discussion, that is Mukamukam. Yeah, before that, these are some of the shots, some of the images in the film Kadapurushan. This is the individual, this is the young Kunyuni. And he becomes a writer, and towards the end you can see he has published a book titled The Hard Consonants. That book is very significant as a resistance, as a part of resistance from this particular character Kunyuni. And Kunyuni later marries the daughter of their servant Meenakshi. So we can see the fluid nature embedded in the class and caste. And coming to the next film, that is Mukamukam. And that film, actually, you can say it is a portrayal of the communist ideology embedded in Kerala, even though Adoor Gopalakrishnan as a filmmaker denies the fact. So the character, the main protagonist of the film is a character named Sridharan. The life of the character named Sridharan is discussed in parallel with the rise and fall of a communist party, and the first winning of communist party in the election in 1957, and how the communist party got split into CPI and CPIM. Adoor Gopalakrishnan never uses a linear narrative to tell the story. There are discrepancies in the character of Sridharan. He's the protagonist. The director, the filmmaker, he has chosen a complex narrative pattern actually to tell the story. Through the central character, the film posits a central discussion on the communist ideology or the leftist ideology. So it is also a part of state. But the very portrayal raises, the film actually never draws the caricature of a powerful man who has heroic attributes to lead the movement. He's a powerful figure, that is the protagonist of the film Mukamukam. He's a powerful figure who possesses strong principles of party's ideology. But the very portrayal of the character raises the question or raises the aspect of power in the plot of the story. State serves as the backdrop, the 1950, the 2 decades, 1950 to 1970, that particular period. So it raises questions about the aspect of power in the plot of the story and the characterization. Of course, obviously, the power is implicit in the plot of the story, and the study attempts to look at the power encapsulated in different layers through the channel of state. The story uses the technique of documentary to place this particular character. As in the film Kadapurushan, both in these films, the non-literary signifiers of the images of printed literature, they are very significant in the previous film also, which I have discussed, Kadapurushan. Adoor has intellectually employed the newspapers or the printed literature to give you an idea about that particular age. It serves as a prop in the film. That is, they are very significant in the film, this Mukamukam, and in the previous film, which I have discussed, Kadapurushan. So the very uncertainty and the ambiguity implied in the headlines, in the newspapers, which were prominent during that period, it adds it adds a dimension to the structures of the power or the policies and the politics of the state. Then coming to the narrative of the film, it again centers on the question, that is the particular character. If you have watched that film, who is Sridharan? The film actually is narrated in the form of a documentary. So the film centers on the question, who is Sridharan? And the answer to the question is told through a series of answers. The hint about the age, that particular age in which the character Sridharan lives, it is crucial to the understanding of the power structure of the society. Then in this film, the evolution of trade union and the conflict between industrialization and how men lost their jobs due to industrialization, how trade union organizations function as an apparatus of power, how the state, how the police, how the common men look at these aspects of power. Trade union organizations, then the policies, then the political parties of that time. So you can see a sort of conflicts between individual and the politics of the state. So that is what we can see in the film Mukhamukam. And coming to the next film, this is the particular character named Sridharan. The film actually operates in 2 segments. So this is a poster of the film named Mukhamukam. How this particular character appears in the first part of the film. This is just an aesthetic representation of the narrative of the film. How the particular character Sridharan appears in the first, or how he was welcomed by the people, or how he was welcomed by the society as a hero. And after 10 years, he disappears. And after that, when he comes to the same people, how he is welcomed by the society, and how this particular man has changed. So the changed man, the changed Sridharan in the second phase of the film, and the Sridharan who appears in the first part of the film, actually that works parallelly with the policies, the winning of the Communist Party, the split of the Communist Party into CPI and CPIM. The gradual development of the plot works in parallel with the characterization of Sridharan and the political party, or the political conflicts and shift in the Communist Party. Then coming to the other film named Nizhal Kuttu. When we discussed the previous 3 films, those 3 films function in a way. They are realistic film. But in Nizhal Kuttu, you can see a sort of imagination. Imagination in the sense, a sort of surrealism you can see in that film Nizhal Kuttu. At the same time, he discusses the princely state of 1940 Travancore. And Adoor says that the plot for the film, or the story for the film, he got from a newspaper, I think it appears as a news in a Sunday supplement. From that, he got the story for this particular film named Nizhal Kuttu. So in this film, there is a particular character named Kaliyappan. He's a hangman in a society, and he's forced to live in the outside in a particular border. And as a hangman of the society, the state decides that he should live away from the mainstream society, and he is forced to live in a particular border. So when the police has to hang a particular man, they called him to do that proceeding. And this particular man, he is not interested to do that, to hang a man, but he is forced to he is forced to do that particular thing. He actually makes an attempt to resist that, but the state forces him, or the police as an instrument of the state forces him to do that. And towards the end of the film, we can see that there are many imaginary, or there are hallucinations. Adoor has employed some sort of hallucinations through the character of the protagonist named Kaliyappan. But at the same time, whether it's a hallucination or not, he makes an attempt to resist that. And towards the end, we can see this particular person, he died due to heart attack, and his son, he has a son named, his son Muthu, he is forced to do the same thing. That is, he is forced to do that hanging for his father. And even this film raises a question, or it questions the judiciary and the police. That is, how far the documents, or how far that the particular person who is going to be hanged, the authenticity about the statement, how far he is innocent, the particular man that they are going to hang, whether he is innocent or not, or how the police or the judiciary should inquire about that particular case. So in all such things, we can see the repressive nature of the judiciary or the police, how they intervene in such matters. So this particular scene and the shot in which you can see that each and every individual, if we see the repressive aspect of the power, how individuals are entrapped in the sense, when I speak about the word entrapment, it is like we see in post-structuralism, it is not an abstract concept, it changes. So this is about the film Nirel Kuttu. And coming to the last slide, conclusion, you can see the state or the sovereign power. It is a sort of codifications of the relations of power. And when we speak about power, we can see resistance. It is coexistent with power, is coexistent with resistance. So the first film, Elipatayam, it investigates how newer power structure emerged as a result of the policy revisions of the state. These power structures become a parallel study in the plot and narrative of the film Elipatayam. As I have already mentioned, the very title, the very name of the film Elipatayam suggests that state functions as a repository of power. The title of the film that alludes to power in both productive and repressive terms. The caste, family, in the case of that film Taravadu, all such things are dominant signifiers of power. Then the male identity, how the male is problematized as a central figure and how their roles are changed. All such things become the discussion in the film. And coming to the second film that I have discussed, Kada Purushan, resistance is active in the case of Kunyuni. Power serves as a productive, power works in a form of productive relations for the character Kunyuni. And the study of the film, or how I made an attempt to look at the film, what I have understood is he has learned to question and battle with the so-called systems and ideology. And the impact of the repressive power system in the protagonist Kunyuni, the life is investigated using speculative analysis. Then the modalities of the sovereign power are analyzed through the direct and indirect involvement of Kunyuni in the social upheavals and turmoils of the age. So the study made the new historicist inquiry through the parallel reading of the references of the policies of the government and its interference in the life of Kunyuni. The study, coming to the next film, Muga Muga, the study looks into the conflict and confrontation between an activist and rebel, or to be specific, an activist turned rebel. Yeah, I think that is more apt. It points out the disparities in the existence of political systems and ideology. There is one character in that film named Damodharan. So the characterization of Damodharan and his narration about the changes. So all such things validate the argument. And also the study documents the split of Communist Party. But it is not a criticism against the Communist Party, or it is an anti-communist strategy. Adoor makes an attempt to question about the promises and about the conflicts, or about the, to be more apt, about the policies, all such things assured by a political system. Political system, of course, it is a part of the state. Then to speak about the film, last film, Nirel Kuttu, state is formed as an institution in the film Nirel Kuttu, to discipline the society and marginalize the other. And also it satirizes and questions the belief in the system of judiciary. So that is what I think what I have made. I have made an attempt to look at the so-called state as a construct of power. So when we speak about power, it is not only in the forms of repressive apparatus, you can say it in the terms of productive aspects also, but there are seen and unseen manifestations of power. And through reading or through the films, like the films of Adoor Gopalakrishnan, I think it is an eye-opener to foreground the seen and unseen manifestations, or the direct and indirect manifestations of power in the society. And film being a cultural artifact, that we people are, it gives an attempt, or it makes us to think, and also it is an instrument, or it is an eye-opener for the policy makers of our society. It is not didactic, but it makes you to think and explore. That's what I think, and thank you.
Thank you, Anu ma'am. That was a very splendid presentation and very informative too. Now, over to the chair of today's session, Vasha ma'am.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and Anu, congratulations. It was a very wonderful presentation, and I would say, you have done a wonderful job when you approach the films, the select films of Adoor Gopalakrishnan from a very theoretical perspective. And I would also say it is an enlightening presentation. As the session is open for discussion, I think I would let me start with a couple of questions, rather a couple of comments on the presentation, and also a little broader on that. So when you trace the transition from the matrilineal joint family system to the patriarchal family among the Nair community that you have discussed with on the backdrop of the films Kathapurushan and Elipatayam, I was immediately reminded of how these themes, these ideas were depicted in the novels of M.T. Vasudevan Nair, especially in his famous novel Nalikattu, and also Asuravittu. So we would always say that how the destruction of Nalikattu, the ancestral Nair family, how the portrayal of how the destruction of Nalukattu has opened the way to modernity. That is how we celebrate his novel and the themes of MT's novels. And coming to the recent film, apart from Adoor's films, coming to a very recent film that discusses the theme of matrimony is the one directed by Madhupal, his movie Orimuri. So all these, how do these films or the filmmakers or the writer approaches the theme of matrimony? And we can say that matrimony is that would be one of the only culture that has been abolished through a legislation. There has been various legislations on how on the disintegration of joint family system and property division and that is all these things. So which culminated in the abolition of matrimony through a proper legislation. We can say there were various reasons. There were Nair reform movements. There were missionary education, the English education, the colonial invasion. All these have been the reasons or had been the reasons for its culmination of legal abolishment. But having said that, I would really appreciate if you could comment on how the portrayal of this transition from matrimony to patriarchal system, how this portrayal, how this has been portrayed in Adoor's films. I would, when I say that, I would appreciate if you could say it from the women characters' point of view. You've been saying that the kind of props Adoor uses in his films, and silence is one of the very important prop that Adoor uses in his films. So it can be, I would like how you read his films to understand the power structures, the power shift from matrimony to patriarchy or patrilineal in his movies, and how does the women characters respond to it.
Okay, thank you for the question, Marsha ma'am. Yeah, of course, we can see there is a transition, especially in the film. If we mention the women characters, the three sisters of Unnikunnu, they actually, they are a representative, or those three sisters, they are the representatives of the new order, except the character called Rajamma. The third sister and the elder sister of this particular person, she is bold enough to ask for the share. So she is bold enough to ask for her own partition. She is asking for her own share. And his youngest sister named, there is a character named Sri Devi. She makes an attempt to break the so-called conventions. And in the film named Kada Purushan also, there is a character who lived in the matrilineal age. There is a character named the so-called Karnavati, the grandmother of Kunyuni. And she's, even though she occupies the central role in that family, but her daughter, that is the mother of Kunyuni, there is a character. So during that time, women occupy the central role, or even though they don't have that much power, they occupy a certain role during the matrilineal system. The character, the grandmother of Kunyuni, she is a representative of that, but her daughter, that is the mother of Kunyuni, she represents the new generation. But at the same time, she's reluctant to come to the forefront. Adoor actually tries to portray a group of characters, women characters, who stand in the doorway. That is when we analyze the shift from the Marimakatayam to Makatayam, or the abolition of matrilineal system. He portrays a group a group of women who stand in the doorway. Actually, they are not coming to the the front part or the drawing room, that part of the room. They stand in the midway. And also I haven't mentioned that I analyzed that film in the study. If you have watched the film Nalu Pennangal, it was an adaptation of a story by Tagari Shivashankara Pilla. In all those films, we can see how the women characters, or he has portrayed the women characters who belong to the transition from Marimakatayam to Makatayam, or to be more specific, the abolition of matrilineal system. At a certain point of time, they got freedom, but I think the women enjoyed, or women had some privileges during the time of matrilineal system. But Adoor problematizes, as we can see, about the fluidity of the power structure. We cannot say this is more welcomeable, that one was bad, this one is good. We cannot make such a statement. As post-structuralism says, we can say that is a sort of moving from the center to the periphery and vice versa. That is, I think, how Adoor has portrayed the women characters in his films.
Yeah, all right. Thanks, Anu. So, any more questions? Please feel free to ask questions.
Yeah, ma'am. We have a respondent for today's session. It's Mr. Gopalakrishnan. He's a part-time research scholar with St. Aloysius College, Thrissur. Gopalakrishnan, sir, are you here? Am I audible? Hello?
Yes. Yeah, I can hear you.
Sir, please, over to you.
Good evening, all. Thank you, Dr. Anu, for that wonderful presentation. Were different aspects of Adoor Gopalakrishnan's film were actually analyzed to us, maybe from a new historical perspective, and then you have used certain ideas regarding power and power structures and everything. As rightly mentioned by you, I have just reached my home now, and I missed some of your points, but from whatever I have heard, I think the very right observation that you have made regarding the films of Adoor Gopalakrishnan, which was actually depicting the kind of a sudden emergence of Kerala from a princely feudal state to a new, a modern state in the new India in the 20th century, which is what functions as the backdrop of the most of the films of Adoor. And from the films which you have analyzed and which you have discussed now, and maybe in the some of the other films which you might not have mentioned here, what we can see is that the kind of the complexity of the narratives that Adoor brings in his films, maybe about identity, about selfhood, sometimes about the otherness, freedom, and the way in which power negotiates, and the constant negotiation between power, the way in which the agency of people who are supposed to create an egalitarian state for them, who are on the way to create such a state, but fails to live up to that expectation. All this, I think, we can see in his films, and there is also the kind of the way in which power corrupts people, in the sense that not just only on the political realm, but on a moral realm also. The kind of search for freedom again outside in the society, and even a kind of freedom and a kind of an inner freedom. that also I think we can see there in his films. And so the kind of discourse that Adoor's films create about how that kind of an imagination, how that kind of an expectation, a dream, which is to be made possible, is sometimes actually cheated by, or what do we say, sometimes even loses its own credibility because of the lack of agency which the people are supposed to execute or use. So I think these films are, in that sense, is a kind of an investigation, a philosophical investigation also. Yes, some of those films which you have mentioned appears to be the classic examples of those things. And I think I haven't heard, maybe I missed, you were not mentioning Swayamvaram. I think it would have been much better if you made a reference to Swayamvaram also, which again appears to be a very prominent work of Adoor. And again, about the kind of the way in which he represents society, and the kind of there are many things were observed about the films of Adoor. His even at the same time when he was taking a film in the almost in the later part of the 20th century, we can see that the thematic concern of the film goes back to the feudal time. So people observed that kind of a regressive tendency is there in the in the perspective itself. Maybe something which we may observe. Then the kind of the contradiction about the power within and the power which you are trying to search, or the power which you are trying to acquire, and how that is not getting manifested. I think all these things are there, and you were talking about many of those aspects, and I think which sheds lights on, and which even prompts to people to think more about the thematic concerns, and also about the form and the film language that Adoor uses. I think which appears to be so very important, because maybe what I think is that apart from the thematic concerns of Adoor, one of the maybe the very important aspect of the films of Adoor is the film language, the visual language that he uses, and the kind of language that he had created. Of course, we know that which had resulted in many mockingly call him as a representative of those, the genre of award films and all that. But still, the visual language that he had made possible for films actually greatly contributed, and which we can see the way in which a Malayalam film has evolved. Okay. That's all. And again, once again, I thank the chair and Dr. Anu for that wonderful presentation. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions? Anu ma'am, there is a question for you in the chat box. Shall I read it out?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. The question is, in what way the repressive nature of power is depicted in the film Mugha Mugha?
In that film, actually, in the second phase, in the first phase of the film and in the second phase of the film, we can see the police acts as the repressive instrument of the state to subdue or to silence the movements. We cannot, due to the fluid nature of power relations, I won't say whether it is productive or repressive, but at the same time, in peripheral terms or in the basic reading we can see the repressive apparatus. The power is represented repressively, or power acts as a form of repression. See Louis Althusser's RSA, the repressive state apparatus. Comparing to the other films of Adoor, the repressive apparatus or the repressive nature of power, we can see in this film, Mukhamukam, and the one of the film that I haven't discussed, Vidayan. You might have heard about that film, Vidayan, by Adoor Gopalakrishnan. In that, we can see the toxic nature of power. And in the film Mukhamukam, the police acts as a source of repressive instrument of the state to subdue the movements which were run by the trade union or the workers' party. The protagonist of that film, Sridharan, is one of the hero or one of the leaders of that trade union movements. So when such movements were very active in that film or in the narrative of the film, the police intervenes and silent the people. They were caught by the police, and there are scenes in which they were the people were beaten by the police using their boots. There are such scenes. Actually, it is a sort of repression to silence their movements. The repressive state apparatus acts. That's what I have seen in the film Mukhamukam.
Okay, ma'am. Shall I move on to the next question?
Of course, ma'am.
Yeah. Another question is, compare the cinematic style of Adoor Gopalakrishnan with that of Satyajit Ray, another iconic Indian filmmaker.
Yeah, of course. One thing is the universal nature, how the universal nature of a human psyche is portrayed. I think that we can see one of that feature both in the films of Satyajit Ray and Adoor Gopalakrishnan sir. Even the films of Adoor Gopalakrishnan are appreciated by the foreigners. The people who were not even know about our culture, Kerala, the background of Kerala, all such things. But even such people, even they can appreciate and enjoy the films of Adoor and also the films of Satyajit Ray. So I think the universal human psyche, both these filmmakers, they know how to portray the psyche. Even though we live in any part of this universe, the psyche is something common, human psyche. So these people succeeded in the representation or in the portrayal of human psyche. And at the same time, the non-literary signifiers used by both these filmmakers, each and every prop or the language of the film, both more than the thematic signifiers or more than the theme or the plot, both these filmmakers have intellectually used props, then the sound. In the films of Adoor Gopalakrishnan, the silence, the sound of, there is a sound even for silence. And also in the case of Satyajit Ray, so the non-literary signifiers or the language of the film is also important, both in Adoor Gopalakrishnan and Satyajit Ray.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. There is another question. It is, can you please explain new historicism with the Kerala state background?
Okay, new historicism. We know new historicism means it is a break away from the traditional form of historicism. that is, we see or we analyze a particular work in the background. Yeah, if it is based on Kerala, if we are going to analyze the work which has written in the Kerala, we analyze that in the background of Kerala. But in the film of Adoor, actually the history of Kerala never works as a background. Through the dialogues, through the plot, through the narrative, the Kerala as a trope or the history of Kerala, it functions as a core text. The history of Kerala never provides a background to the understanding of the film. Rather, I think in the films of Adoor, the Kerala as a trope, it functions as a core text. So through the dialogue, through the allusions, political allusion, through the allusions or through the references in certain dialogues, we can understand the taste, or we can, to be more specific, we can understand the spirit of that particular age, especially in the film Elipatayam, Kadapurushan and Mugamugam, and to a certain extent in the film Nalu Pennangal of Adoor. With a few exceptions, most of the films are based on the princely state of Travancore. The history of the princely state of Travancore, it functions as a core text in the films of Adoor. Next.
Okay, ma'am. Now the next question is, you are asked to compare Adoor Gopalakrishnan's and Shyam Benegal's screenplay style.
Yeah, the screenplay, I think, Adoor Gopalakrishnan, I think, is more specific about when he makes a particular plot, or of course, Shyam Benegal also, that is seen in the films of Adoor Gopalakrishnan. He's more specific about when he wrote the screenplay. Even when I made an interview with Adoor sir, he made such a comment. When I write something, or when he writes his screenplay, he's very clear and he's very specific about each and every minute prop that has to be used in a particular shot. Each and every prop used in a particular shot has a specific meaning, and he decides that, and he completes the work when he writes the screenplay. Even I think about Shyam Benegal also. I haven't read his screenplay, but when I watch the films of Shyam Benegal, I think he has also succeeded in doing that. I haven't read the screenplay. I haven't read the of Shyam Benegal, but I think both of these filmmakers have succeeded in making the representation of the props and the visual language of the film.
Okay, ma'am. Another question here is, in Mugamugam film, are there any symbolic elements or metaphors used? If so, what are they and what do they represent?
Actually, yeah, he has used the metaphors as the color. The red color is a significant metaphor. It refers to, in one way, the bloodshed of the blood, that is beaten by the police very harshly, the particular character, and also the as we have structured the color of the leftist party, as a symbol of that, the red. He has never mentioned about the Communist Party or leftist ideology, but the red color is used as one of the symbol or one of the metaphor in that film. Then, like that, silence. Silence even acts as a metaphor in that film. Then window tropes, window bars. It appears in most of the films of Adoor, and in this film also specifically, in the characterization or in the representation of the character named Sridharan. He is seen, from the window, that is window bar. So how he was silenced in the second phase of the film. Like that metaphor, we can see the newspapers that I have mentioned, the newspapers of the film, just the printed literature. Newspapers also, the prominent newspapers of that time, the headlines, all such things can appear as metaphors in the gradual development of the plot.
Yes, ma'am. I think the questions in the chat box are over. If any participants have any queries.
Ma'am, good evening.
Good evening.
My question is that does Adoor Gopalakrishnan try to communicate that Maoism is better than the contemporary Marxism or the political Marxism? So when you discuss these two films, Mugamugam and the other one, Gopalakrishnan, the argument I think that Adoor Gopalakrishnan attempt is to communicate Maoism is better than the contemporary Marxism or practice or political Marxism. What is your argument, ma'am?
I think he hasn't attempted to make such a cliche statement or direct statement about which one is better. He just focuses on, he never supports a political party, or he never supports a political party, or he's never bad about that. He just speaks about the conflicting ideologies of both the political party and how the power structures are created, or how the power structures are constructed by both these political ideologies, and how each and every individual confront, or how each and every individual actually, the people, obviously we have different reactions towards the ideologies of the political party. So I think that is the success of Adoor sir. He never makes such a didactic statement, or he never makes such a cliche statement. He just portrays about the complexities and conflicts in both, whatever is leftist party or Maoist, he portrays, and he makes you to think. He makes we, the spectators, to think and analyze on that, rather than supports a particular political party or ideology. That is what how I have read his films.
Thank you, ma'am. I hope your question was answered. There is one question which I had missed out, which have been posted in the chat box. His question is, why did you take up this issue? What's the inspiration for this?
Yeah, I think it is something, power. Power is something which is seen, or there are more direct and indirect manifestations of the power, and power is seen everywhere in the society. So as an art form, there are power manifestations in the films. But I think Adoor Gopalakrishnan's films show the indirect manifestations of power in the society in an aesthetic and intelligible way. Especially one thing that especially related to Kerala. One thing I have attracted is, or one of the first film that I watched is Adoor Gopalakrishnan's Nalu Penangal. Even though it is an adaptation from Thagazhi Shivashankara Pilla's story. So in that film, how power is portrayed. In the first part of the film, there is a first segment, Veshya. So how society's power, how the power both has a repressive and ideological state apparatus and repressive state apparatus, how power works in the society, and through the dialogues and through the plot of that film, Adoor Gopalakrishnan in an intelligible way shows that portrayal of power, and especially through the non-literary signifiers. That is very important, and that is very appealing.